It was the day of the cruise I had been waiting for so long. After years of mostly staying home, I was excited at the thought of finally getting a break and having special moments with my son and daughter-in-law. I was ready. Sunscreen on, my favorite floral maxi dress, straw tote in hand. Right then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my son. "Mom, we've decided you're not coming on the cruise this time. We want to go, just family together." In that moment, everything seemed to freeze. My heart pounded, my hands started to shake. The trip I had dreamed of taking with them vanished with a single text. Before I go on, if you're watching on the channel, remember to follow and tell me where you're watching from. We're so happy to know where the story resonates. I remember exactly the day everything fell apart. I stood in the living room, suitcase by the door, heart racing with excitement. This would be my first trip in years, a cruise I had helped pay for, as I always did whenever it involved my son Andrew and his wife Lauren. The phone buzzed again in my pocket. A text from Andrew. "Mom, plans changed. You're not coming with us. Lauren wants just real family." I read it over and over. Real family. As if I, the one who gave birth to him and raised him alone for 34 years, didn't qualify as family. Worse than the indifference and abandonment was the fact that just a few hours earlier, I had finished paying the last mortgage installment on their house, with my name still on the title. I sat down on the sofa, still holding the phone, trying not to cry. This wasn't the first time my son had pushed me out. Since Andrew met Lauren, I'd been edged farther and farther away. First, Sunday dinners became less frequent. Then came the criticisms. I talked too loudly. My opinions were outdated. Next were invitations to important occasions that never arrived. My granddaughter's baby shower, their anniversary, party. Even so, I kept helping. When the kitchen renovation fell short, I made up the difference. When the car broke down, I loaned mine. When they needed help with the mortgage during the pandemic, I transferred money without asking when they'd pay it back. Yet only a month after I made the final mortgage payment, I wasn't real family. I stood up, and a strange feeling rose in my chest. It wasn't pain or disappointment anymore. Those emotions had repeated so many times they'd gone dull. This time it was crystal clarity, a resolve I hadn't felt in a very long time. I went into my study and opened the drawer with my important papers. There was the blue folder, the house's complete paperwork, the deed with my name as primary owner, along with transfer receipts from over the years. I had never transferred ownership to them. I'd always put off that conversation. Andrew would say, "Why would you do that, Mom? We're family." Ironically, family kept changing, meaning depending on their convenience. Flipping through the papers, I remembered Lauren's dismissive look when I suggested a lunch to celebrate Bella's birthday. "Bella's schedule is very fixed, Miss Julie. Maybe wait for a more suitable occasion." Of course, that occasion never came. I only learned about the party through photos on Instagram, the whole Lauren side smiling around a cake I didn't even know existed. That night, I made my decision. No impulsiveness, no screaming or pleading. I would act calculatedly, quietly, and above all, legally. I called Mark Davis, the attorney who'd worked with me for over 10 years. "Mark, I need to meet tomorrow about Andrew's house." The next day, sitting in the law office, I laid everything out. No theatrics, no tears. Mark listened, reviewed the file I'd brought, and confirmed what I already knew. "Julie, legally, the house is yours. You can sell it any time, without needing their permission or prior notice." "What about their belongings in the house?" "You can give them a reasonable time to remove personal items. 30 days is standard." I left the office with a strange sense of power, not the destructive power of revenge, but the restorative power of justice. I didn't want to hurt them. I just wanted them to understand that every action has consequences. Love isn't an open-ended check. Respect is a two-way street. That afternoon, I called a discreet real estate agent, the kind who works with high-end clients and doesn't post a for sale sign out front. I made it clear I wanted a fast process, serious buyers, ready to pay immediately. The location is excellent, Miss Julie. It won't be hard to find a buyer, especially if the price is competitive. I set a fair price, not undercutting, not inflating. I didn't want to profit. I just wanted to reclaim what was mine and move on. The agent promised a serious offer within 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Andrew and Lauren had boarded the cruise. Photos began to appear on social media. Bright cocktails on the deck, elegant dinners, perfect smiles for the camera, and I discovered they were using my credit card because it was still linked to the reservation. Spa treatments, exclusive tours, everything charged to my account. That was confirmation. I was on the right path. It wasn't just about money, it was about principle, respect, and boundaries. I immediately froze the card and blocked their numbers. From that moment on, all communication would go through my attorney. A week later, the agent called, thrilled. There's a couple who wants to close quickly and pay in full. I signed the papers 2 days later. The deal closed at record speed. The money went straight into my account. The keys were handed to the new owners with instructions that they could take possession whenever they wished. I chose the handover date to be exactly when Andrew and Lauren returned from the cruise. I left a letter taped to the door, printed on the law office letterhead. This property has been legally sold. Your personal belongings have been put into storage. The storage address can be obtained by contacting the office of Attorney Mark Davis. The removal and storage were carried out under a court order and under the supervision of the local enforcement unit, ensuring proper procedure. You have 30 days to retrieve your property. Please direct all communication to the attorney. And then, for the first time in years, I did something just for myself. I rented a small beachfront apartment where the only sound to wake me was the surf, where no one told me I spoke too loudly, that my views were too old-fashioned, or that I wasn't real family. Driving to my new home, I felt an emotion I hadn't had in ages: freedom. Not the freedom of someone running away, but of someone who finally understands her own worth. The next morning, I woke to the sound of waves. The new apartment was simple, but the view made up for anything luxurious I might have left behind. I brewed coffee, sat on the little balcony, and allowed myself to smile for the first time in days. The phone was silent. I'd turned it off last night, knowing that when Andrew and Lauren got home and saw the notice taped to the door, a storm of calls would come. I wasn't ready. I needed this moment of peace, this small, quiet bubble I created for myself. Around 10 o'clock, I turned on the phone only to see if Mark had reached out. As expected, there were dozens of missed calls from Andrew and Lauren, voicemails, long texts, some pleading, some attacking. I ignored them all and called Mark. "Good morning, Julie." As we predicted, they reached out. They're very agitated, I figured. What did they say? Basically that I had no right to do this, that it was their house, that they have nowhere to go. Andrew also said they had paid many installments over the years. A flicker of guilt passed through me, and I pushed it aside. It was true, they had paid a few installments at times, but I covered the vast majority. The property taxes for the last 3 years had come entirely from my account. What did you reply, Mark? Exactly as agreed. Title is in your name. The transaction was lawful. They have 30 days to retrieve belongings from storage. I also made clear you don't want direct contact. All communication goes through my office. Thank you, Mark. Can they sue me? They can try. But there's no basis. No transfer paperwork ever existed. You never signed any commitment to transfer. Legally, you're protected. I hung up and returned to the balcony with my tea. I didn't feel gleeful about any of this, just that odd sensation of fairness being restored. For years, I'd been the one they turned to when they needed money, but never when they wanted company. Good enough to co-sign, but not good enough to attend my own grandchild's baby shower. By noon, the phone pinged with a new notification. Lauren had posted an Instagram story. Some people never accept that their children have grown up and started their own families. Some mothers-in-law are toxic and controlling, even while pretending to help. Beware of gifts with invisible strings. I chuckled to myself. Classic casting herself as the victim in every story. I didn't respond, neither publicly nor privately. Silence would be my only answer from now on. That afternoon, my sister Cecilia called. I wasn't surprised when she launched into the speech I'd already predicted. "Julie, are you out of your mind?" Andrew called me in tears. "How could you sell their house?" "The house isn't theirs, Cecilia. It's mine. My name is on the title, and I've paid the majority of the monthly installments. But that's your son. We're family." I took a deep breath before answering. Family, that word has been used to pressure me for years. When money's needed, we're family. When they need me to watch Bella so they can go out, family. But when it's time to invite me on a cruise, suddenly I'm not real family. "What are you talking about?" I told her about the last-minute text cutting me from the trip and about discovering they were still using my credit card to splurge on the ship. "And you sold the house. Wasn't that a bit much?" "Do you know what too much is, Cecilia? It's me paying the mortgage on that house for 5 years, and then a month after I make the final payment, they text me that I'm not real family. That's what's too much. All I did was exercise my legal right over property that belongs to me." Cecilia was silent for a few seconds. She's always been gentle, believing family should forgive everything, but she wasn't in my place. She didn't live through years of tiny rejections, cutting remarks disguised as jokes, and being remembered only when it was convenient. "So where are they going to live?" she asked. "They're adults, Cecilia. They have jobs, some savings. They'll find a place to rent like any other couple. And maybe, just maybe, they'll learn that treating people like disposable objects has consequences." After I hung up, that little stab of guilt returned. Andrew was my son, after all. I still loved him, despite everything. But sometimes love needs clear boundaries so it doesn't turn into abuse. Sometimes we have to make people understand we won't be used indefinitely. Late in the afternoon, I received an email from Mark Davis. Andrew had requested a meeting to discuss the situation. I agreed, with conditions. Only Andrew, not Lauren, and at the attorney's office, not in a private place where they could try to manipulate my emotions. The meeting was set for 10 a.m. the next day. All evening, I braced myself, quietly replaying every moment I'd felt excluded, disrespected, used not to feed resentment, but to steel my resolve, to remind myself why I had taken such a decisive step. The next morning I dressed carefully. A light blue blouse that always gave me confidence, a touch of soft lipstick, my hair in a low bun. I wanted to look serene, in control, not a woman driven by anger or desperation. I arrived at Mark's office 10 minutes early. He greeted me with a gentle smile and led me into the conference room, where we waited for Andrew. When my son walked in, I could see he hadn't slept. Dark circles carved his face, and he looked like he'd aged years in just a few days. "Mom," he sat across from me, "why did you do this to us?" For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel the need to justify myself or apologize. I answered calmly, "I didn't do anything against you, Andrew. I exercised my rights over property that legally belongs to me. But that's our house. We've lived there for 2 years. Right, you've lived in a house in my name, with most of the installments paid by me, and the property taxes for the last 3 years taken from my retirement." Andrew ran a hand through his hair, visibly frustrated. "We were going to pay you back. We always said we would. When, Andrew? When you have money for cruises and spa treatments but never to reimburse me? When you text me that I'm not real family?" His eyes widened, hearing his own words thrown back at him. "That was just a misunderstanding. Lauren was stressed about the trip planning, so I cut in. We're not here to trade excuses. We're here to define the next steps. Your personal belongings have been placed in storage. You have 30 days to retrieve them. If you need more time, you can submit a request through Mark." "So where are we supposed to live?" he pressed. "Did you think about that?" "The same way I thought about where I would stay when I was left at the pier while you two sailed off on a cruise I helped pay for. You're adults, you have jobs, rent a place while you get reorganized." The meeting lasted less than 20 minutes. In the end, Andrew looked defeated, but I felt lighter. I hadn't yelled or cried, just held my ground, firmly and clearly. Walking out of the office, I knew it was only the first step in a journey of self-understanding and self-respect. 3 days passed after that meeting. My phone stayed quiet. I temporarily blocked their numbers to protect my peace. In that brief silence, I started to reorganize my life in the new apartment. Compared to the old house, this place was modest, but it had what I needed: a warm bedroom, a small kitchen where I could cook for myself, and a balcony facing the ocean that quickly became my refuge. I hung only a few old photos on the wall from when Andrew was little, before resentment and manipulation entered our lives. That morning, while I was sipping coffee, I got a call from Mark. "Good morning, Julie. I need to let you know. Andrew and Lauren have hired an attorney." My stomach clenched, but I stayed calm. "What are they claiming?" "They're trying to argue there was a verbal agreement that you promised to transfer the house to them eventually. They're also pointing to a few installments they paid as proof they had a right to the house." "Do they have a chance to win?" "Honestly, very small. Verbal agreements are hard to prove, especially without witnesses, and the fact they contributed a few installments doesn't negate your legal ownership." I took a deep breath, feeling both sad and determined. I never imagined I'd end up in a legal fight against my own son. What should I do now? For the moment, nothing. I'll respond formally, reaffirming your position as the legal owner. If you want, we can propose a settlement, reimburse the installments. They can prove they paid as a gesture of goodwill without recognizing any ownership rights. I agreed with Mark's plan. I didn't want their money. It was never about that. It was about respect, about setting boundaries, about showing I'm not an ATM they can use when it's convenient. After the call, I decided I needed to get out for a bit. Cozy as it was, the apartment was starting to feel like a cage for heavy thoughts. I put on something light, grabbed my bag, and headed down to walk the beach. Sand under my bare feet gave me a freedom I hadn't felt in a long time. I walked the shoreline, watching families enjoy the sunny day, kids building sand castles, older folks chatting in beach chairs, people living their lives without the drama I was facing. As I walked, I realized something. For years, I had defined my existence around Andrew and his family. My decisions, my time, my money, everything revolved around them. And when I set boundaries, when I started prioritizing my own needs, I was cast as the villain. I stopped, looking at the horizon where sky meets sea. I was 66, still young enough to start over, to build a life not defined by someone else's ingratitude, even if that someone was my only child. I went back to the apartment with a new resolve. If Andrew and Lauren wanted to take this legal, so be it. Not out of spite or revenge, but because it was time to clearly assert that I also deserve respect. That afternoon, I received an email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line read, "Please read. Bella misses Grandma." Bella was my 4-year-old granddaughter, the little one I rarely got to see without Lauren hovering. I opened the email, heart racing. It was from Helen, Lauren's mother. "Julie, I know we're not close, but I'm writing because I'm worried. Andrew and Lauren are staying at our apartment for now, and Bella keeps asking for you. She misses her grandma. Regardless of the adult's issues, a child shouldn't be deprived of her grandmother's love." I read it, over and over, tears welling up. Bella, the little girl who would run into my arms on the rare times we met, who adored the chocolate cookies I baked just for her, who drew me cards filled with colorful hearts. I replied carefully, "Thank you, Mrs. Helen, for caring about Bella. I miss her very much, too. I never intended to be away from her. If Andrew and Lauren agree, I would love to see her. If it's convenient, perhaps you could bring her to spend an afternoon with me." The response came quickly. "I'll speak to them. I can't promise, but I'll do my best." I closed the computer with a mix of hope and apprehension. Helen had always seemed sensible, so different from her daughter. If anyone could mediate, at least regarding Bella, it would be her. The next morning, I went to the local market to pick up a few things. While I was in the checkout line, I felt a light touch on my shoulder. Turning, I saw Regina, an old friend I hadn't seen in ages. "Julie, I've been so long. I heard you moved back here." I smiled, genuinely glad to see a familiar face. "Yeah, just a few days, call it a new start." Regina looked me over carefully. "You look different, lighter, even with everything you're going through." "I guess that's right, different, but lighter." I accepted Regina's invite for coffee at a small seaside cafe after shopping. Sitting in the cafe, I gave a brief account of what had happened. After listening, Regina said, "I've always thought you gave Andrew and Lauren too much, not just money, but emotions. You were always available, always putting their needs before your own." "Because they're family," I replied. "Family matters, yes, but there has to be reciprocity and mutual respect. Otherwise, it's no longer a healthy relationship, it's exploitation." I carried the word exploitation with me for the rest of the day. It sounded heavy, but it precisely described what I'd gone through these past few years, exploited emotionally and financially, treated like a resource, not a human being with feelings and needs of my own. That evening, I received another message from Helen. She had spoken with Andrew and Lauren. They agreed to let Bella visit me, but with conditions. The visit would be supervised, only 2 hours long, and Helen had to be present the entire time. At first, I bristled at so many restrictions. What danger did they think I posed to my own granddaughter? But after thinking it through, I decided to accept. 2 hours with Bella, even supervised, was better than nothing. We set it for the following Sunday. In the days before that, I prepared everything. I bought ingredients to bake the chocolate cookies Bella adored, picked out a few picture books I knew she'd like, and set up a small nook on the balcony where the two of us could look out at the ocean together. Sunday came, and I woke early, both eager and nervous. I tidied the apartment, baked the pros, cookies, and waited. Right on time, the doorbell rang. Helen stood there holding Bella's hand. When she saw me, my granddaughter beamed a smile that warmed my heart. "Grandma!" She let go of Helen's hand and ran into my arms. I bent down to gather her up, breathing in the scent of children's shampoo and her soft hair, feeling her cool little cheek against mine. In that moment, some of the resentment melted away. "Hi, my love," I whispered, holding back tears. "I've missed you so much. 2 hours flew by like 2 minutes. Bella showed me her new drawings, told me about school, asked about the ocean view from my balcony. We ate cookies, read stories, and even took a short walk along the sandy beach in front of the building. Helen stayed discreetly in the background, giving us space to reconnect. When it was time to leave, Bella hugged me tight. "Grandma, why don't you come live with us at Grandma Helen's house? There's room." The innocent question caught me off guard. How could I explain to a 4-year-old the complexities of adult relationships, the accumulated resentments, and hard choices? I answered gently, "Grandma has her own place now, sweetie, but if your parents allow it, we can see each other more often." Bella nodded, seeming to accept the simplest version a child could understand. As she said goodbye, Helen came closer. "She misses you very much, Julie. I hope we can keep these visits going, regardless of what's happening between you and Andrew and Lauren." I thanked Helen for her conciliatory attitude and watched the two of them leave, my heart mixed with joy at the reunion and sadness at how brief it was. That night, sitting on the balcony under the stars over the ocean, I made a decision. I would fight to protect my legal rights to the house, not to punish Andrew and Lauren, but because it was fair. At the same time, I would try to build a bridge to stay connected with Bella. She wasn't at fault for the adults' mistakes and deserved to have her grandmother in her life. A week after the visit, Mark Davis called me. His voice was upbeat, rare for someone usually so composed. "Julie, there's news. Andrew and Lauren's attorney is proposing a settlement." I sat on the edge of the bed, surprised by the sudden turn. "What exactly?" "They'll drop the dispute over the sale of the house. In return, they want you to reimburse the installments they can prove they paid, with value adjustments as required by law." Why the change of heart? Last time they were determined to fight to the end. Mark paused. It seems they found documents that would severely weaken their position. Emails between the two of them, discussing how they might eventually claim the house through other legal mechanisms without waiting for you to transfer it voluntarily. In one email, Lauren explicitly states there was never a verbal agreement that you would transfer the title. My stomach twisted. It wasn't just ingratitude or indifference, it was a deliberate plan to take what was rightfully mine. How did those emails surface? Their side didn't give details. Maybe someone close thought things had gone too far and forwarded them to the attorney to avoid a long, unwinnable case. I was silent for a few minutes, processing. Part of me wanted to reject the offer and take the case all the way to expose the manipulation. But another part, perhaps the wiser one, knew accepting a settlement would end this painful chapter faster and with less strain. "What do you advise, Mark?" "Legally, you can decline and still win, especially with new evidence. But the price would be months of litigation, emotional and financial costs, and further erosion of your relationship with Andrew." I looked out at the ocean. The tide was receding, leaving a sheen on the wet sand. "How much have they paid in total?" According to the proof they submitted, about 30% of the home's value over the past 2 years. I did a quick calculation. It wasn't small, but it didn't come close to what I had put in over the years. Besides, the sale proceeds would let me stand on my own and move forward. I'll accept the settlement, Mark. I want to close this chapter. Are you sure? You don't have to decide right now? I'm sure. Reimburse the installments they can prove, adjusted fairly under the law. I don't want to owe them anything, and I don't want them saying I kept something that wasn't mine. After I hung up, I sat on the balcony for a long time, staring at the horizon. This wasn't about money or property anymore, it was about dignity. I wanted to look in the mirror and not see someone who had lowered herself to the level of those who had hurt her. That evening, I got a text from Helen. Bella wants to know if she can visit Grandma this Sunday. Is that okay? I replied immediately. Of course. That small message brought my first smile of the day. Even as my relationship with Andrew and Lauren cooled into a sterile legal file, at least my bond with my granddaughter remained intact. In the days that followed, I started planning my future. With the legal issue nearing resolution, I considered my options. The house sale proceeds, even after reimbursing Andrew and Lauren's portion, would still give me comfort. I could keep renting my Ocean View apartment or buy a small place of my own. I could travel, take short courses, and pursue hobbies I'd set aside for others' needs. By Friday, Mark emailed confirmation. The settlement was signed. Funds would be transferred to Andrew and Lauren the following week. In return, they signed a document acknowledging the legality of the sale and agreeing not to contest it further. Case closed, Mark wrote. Congratulations on choosing the prudent path. On Sunday, Helen brought Bella as promised. This time, she didn't impose a 2-hour limit or monitor every moment. Helen simply said, "I'll come back late afternoon." "Lauren doesn't know I'm leaving Bella alone with you," she whispered before leaving, "but I find it absurd to try to separate her from her grandma. I'll be back at 5. Bella and I had a wonderful day. A picnic on the sand, collecting shells, building castles, and watching the tide wash them away. She talked about school and friends and how she missed the big house they used to live in. Now we live at Grandma Helen's place. It's kind of cramped, and Mom gets mad a lot," Bella said with the blunt honesty of a child. "What about your dad?" "Dad's really quiet. Sometimes he goes into the bedroom and closes the door. I think he cries, but Mom says men don't cry." Hearing that, I felt myself sink. No matter how hurt I was, Andrew was still my son. Imagining him suffering in silence pricked my heart. When Helen came back, I asked if we could talk for a few minutes. We sat on the balcony while Bella finished gathering shells to take home. "How are they really, Helen?" Helen sighed. "Not well. Money is tight. Lauren lost her job 2 months ago. She hid it from everyone, including you. They were planning to use the house as collateral for a loan to get through this rough patch. When they found out the house had been sold, everything collapsed. Andrew didn't tell you Lauren forbade him from asking for your help. She said they needed to be independent, that relying on you was humiliating. It was Lauren who insisted you not go on the cruise." Andrew hesitated, but she convinced him it would be a crucial time for them as a couple to strengthen their marriage amid all the difficulties. That information helped me understand more, though it didn't erase the past. Hardship could explain part of it, but it didn't justify years of treating me like an ATM instead of family. "I'm telling you, so you have the whole picture before deciding how to move forward," Helen said. "Not to make you soften or change your mind. Given how you were treated, what you did was fair." After they left, I lay awake thinking. The anger and bitterness no longer stood alone. They blended with a cautious empathy for the situation. The next morning, I called Mark. "Keep the settlement as is, but I want to add one thing. Besides reimbursing the installments they paid, I want to establish an education fund for Bella." "An education fund?" Yes. I'll set aside a portion of the house sale money in an account to be used only when Bella turns 18, exclusively for her education. I don't want Andrew or Lauren touching it before then. All right, Julie. We can structure a fund with those conditions. How much do you want to allocate? I gave a number equivalent to about 20% of the sale proceeds. Not all of it, I still needed to take care of myself, but enough to ensure Bella could get a solid education, regardless of her parents' finances. I'll draft the paperwork right away, Mark said. That's a noble gesture, Julie. It's not noble, it's love. No matter how hurt I was by Andrew and Lauren, I wouldn't let my granddaughter pay for the adults' wrong choices around her. 3 days later, I went to Mark Davis's office to sign all the documents. The settlement with Andrew and Lauren, the reimbursement of installments they could prove, and the paperwork establishing Bella's education fund. After I signed the last page, I felt a boulder lift from my shoulders. What now? I asked Mark. Now you live your life, Julie. You did the right thing, protected your interests, and still secured your granddaughter's future. The rest is up to them. Walking out of the office, I decided to do something I hadn't done in a long time. I stopped by a car dealership and bought a small, simple, but new car, something just for me, giving me the freedom to come and go, explore my new surroundings without relying on anyone. While doing the paperwork, the salesperson asked, "Is this a gift for someone in the family?" I smiled, remembering all the times I'd put others' needs before my own. No, it's a gift to myself. It's time I came first. The new car brought back a feeling of freedom I'd forgotten. In the following weeks, I drove up and down the American coastline, discovering quiet stretches of sand, humble but delicious seafood shacks, and local markets with fresh fruit and just-caught fish. I was relearning the joy of living at my own pace. No need to ask permission, no need to fit anyone else's schedule. Bella's Sunday visits became a fixture. Helen brought her regularly, sometimes staying for coffee, sometimes leaving her with me for the whole afternoon. During one of those visits, about a month after signing the settlement, I received the first direct call from Andrew since everything began. We were building an elaborate sandcastle when the phone rang. Seeing his name on the screen, I hesitated. "Go ahead, Grandma," Bella said, as if sensing it. "I'll watch the castle." I stepped a few paces away and answered. "Hi, Mom." Andrew's voice sounded different, more measured, maybe more mature. "Hi, son. Everything okay?" I know I wasn't supposed to call directly. The agreement says all communication goes through the attorneys. "It's all right," I cut in. "The legal part is done. We don't need intermediaries now." He paused, as if arranging his thoughts. "Mark told me about the education fund you created for Bella." "Yes, it's for her future, to make sure she has a shot at an education, no matter what happens. It's generous, especially after everything." I looked at Bella in the distance, her tongue sticking out in concentration, just like Andrew when he was little. "I did it for Bella, not for you or Lauren. She's not at fault." "I know. Even so, thank you, Mom." Another long pause. I thought the call was over when Andrew went on. "Mom, I want to apologize. For the cruise text, for letting Lauren treat you that way all those years, for taking advantage of your kindness." I was surprised. I didn't think I'd hear such a direct apology and so soon. "What changed, Andrew? Why now?" "A lot. Lauren and I are separated." That news shouldn't have stunned me, especially after what Helen had told me, but my chest still tightened. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Don't be. It should have happened a long time ago. The house situation was just the last straw that made us realize we'd been not okay for years. We used outside problems, money, work, even you as excuses to avoid looking at what was wrong between us. I looked at Bella, still absorbed in her sandcastle, unaware that this conversation could change her life's direction. What about Bella? How is she taking it? We haven't told her. We're living separately now. Lauren and Bella are at Grandma Helen's. I rented a small apartment near work. Bella thinks it's just temporary so I can be closer to the office. You two have to tell her, Andrew. Kids understand more than we think. I know. We'll tell her soon. But first, we want to settle custody and routines so we can give her clear answers. The sound of waves filled the space between us. Mom, could we meet in person to talk? The question made me hesitate. Part of me wanted to keep my distance to protect myself from new wounds. Another part recognized that this call was an effort and a rare vulnerability from my son. Okay, next week. Great. Thank you, Mom. We set it for Wednesday of the next week at a seaside cafe near my apartment, a neutral spot, public enough to avoid emotional blow-ups, yet private enough for honesty. After I hung up, Bella ran over and tugged my hand. Grandma, come see. I made a castle for the sea princess. She had built towers, a bridge from twigs, and a flag from a palm leaf. It's beautiful, sweetheart. You've got talent. She grinned, then asked with innocent curiosity, Was that Dad calling? Yes, it was your dad. He's okay. But he's been sad lately. I knelt to her eye level. Grown-ups get confused and sad sometimes, you know. I know. Mom cries too when she thinks I'm not looking. That happens. But don't worry. They'll find a way to be okay again. She seemed satisfied and turned back to dig a moat around the castle. The days leading up to Wednesday passed slowly. I kept busy with small things, walking along the shore, reading new books, and tried not to set too many expectations. It will be what it needs to be, I told myself. On the day of the meeting, I dressed just right, not too formal, not sloppy. I wanted to look serene, with my hands on the wheel of my own life, even if inside was a mix of worry and hope. I arrived early, chose a table on the patio facing the ocean, and ordered a chamomile tea to calm my nerves. Andrew arrived on time. He looked thinner, with deep circles under his eyes. A simple shirt and jeans, none of the polished look Lauren used to value. Hi, Mom, he said softly. We hesitated a second, then he leaned in and kissed my cheek. You look well, he said, sitting down. Seems the seaside life agrees with you. I'm getting used to it. And you? How's the new apartment? Small but fine. Living alone, I don't need much. We chatted about little things, the weather, people on the sand before Andrew set down his coffee and got to the point. These past weeks, I've thought a lot about how we treated you all these years, about how I let Lauren steer our relationship with you. I stayed quiet, letting him speak. We were wrong. All of it was wrong. Using your kindness, cutting you out of the family whenever we didn't need material help, leaving you standing alone at the pier that day. His voice fell, eyes welling. The worst part is I knew it was wrong the moment I sent that text, but I was so used to giving in to Lauren, to avoiding conflict, that I let it happen. Why did you let it go on so long? He wiped away a tear. When we first started dating, Lauren said you were controlling and manipulative. I was so in love I believed her. I accepted her version of you, of our family. After that, it got harder and harder to admit I was wrong, that I'd let her come between us. His words hurt, but there was also a strange relief in finally calling the truth by its name. Ironically, Andrew continued, the truly controlling one was her. She decided when we could see you, when we could ask for your help, when we had to push you away. And I, out of weakness, convenience, fear of being alone, let it happen. And now? What do you want, Andrew?" He looked straight into my eyes, something he hadn't done in a long time. "I want a second chance. I'm not talking about money or help. I don't need those. I'm asking for the chance to rebuild our relationship, to be the son you deserve, and to let you be Bella's grandma without conditions, without limits." My heart tightened. It was what I had wished for all these years, and still, a hesitation lingered in me. Part of me was still afraid to open up again, to be vulnerable to the same old disappointments. "It won't be easy, Andrew. Once broken, trust takes time to rebuild. I know. I'm willing to wait, willing to prove day by day that I've changed, that I understand my mistakes." I looked out at the ocean, the waves hitting the sand and sliding back to the sea, an endless ebb and flow. Maybe relationships are like that too, near and far, tides rising and falling. "We can try," I said at last, one day at a time. Relief spread across Andrew's face. He reached across the table as if asking permission to touch my hand. I hesitated a beat, then placed mine over his. A small gesture, but the first step on a long road to rebuilding. 3 months after that seaside cafe meeting, life had taken on a different rhythm. Calmer in some ways, busier in others. Andrew and I began to mend things gradually, with small gestures from both sides. He visited regularly, sometimes bringing Bella, sometimes coming alone. We spoke about the past with an honesty we'd never had before, how he felt abandoned after his father died, how I buried myself in work to fill the gap, and how Lauren cleverly exploited the cracks between us. Their separation became official, with shared custody of Bella. On the days Bella was with Andrew, the two of them often came by. We established a new routine: Saturday breakfasts on my balcony, beach walks, board games on bad weather nights. Lauren kept her distance each drop-off. She let Bella walk to my door alone. Helen still played bridge when needed, but less and less often. One Sunday afternoon, while Andrew and I were making lunch and Bella was watching cartoons in the living room, he said something that made me tense. "Mom, Lauren is asking for a bigger share of the education fund you set up for Bella." I stopped chopping, looked up. "What do you mean? That fund is only for Bella's education when she turns 18. Neither of you is allowed to touch it before then." Andrew sighed, looking uncomfortable. "I know. I've explained it to her many times, but she says, as the mother, she has the right to decide how the money should be used. She wants to withdraw part of it early to put Bella in an international private school next year. And what do you think? I think the fund should stay as it is. There's a reason for it. For now, Bella is doing well in public school. The fund will guarantee college for her." I went back to slicing vegetables, thinking as I worked. It wasn't surprising that Lauren wanted to get her hands on the money. What surprised me was Andrew's firmness in refusing. "Has she talked to a lawyer?" "She says she's exploring options, but it'll be tough." The fund was drafted very tightly. "Mark did a great job." I nodded, grateful for the caution we took in setting it up. "And you? How do you feel about all this?" Andrew looked out the kitchen window toward the ocean, honestly relieved. Separation was hard, especially because of Bella, but it was necessary. Only now do I see how suffocating that relationship was, how much I'd lost my voice and identity. Is it hard on Bella? At first it was. She had lots of questions, lots of insecurity. But I think we're providing the stability she needs, even in separate homes, and having you present regularly in her life has been a huge comfort. I smiled, both relieved and grateful. Despite the bitterness, it seemed my family was finding a new balance, a configuration that somehow worked better for all of us. 2 weeks later, Mark called, his tone serious. "Julie, Lauren has filed a lawsuit demanding a change to the terms of the education fund." I sank into a seat, my stomach twisting. "On what basis?" "She claims that, as the mother and legal guardian, she has the right to decide how educational resources are used. She's requesting that at least 30% be dispersed immediately to pay private school tuition. Our chances? Pretty good. The fund is a purpose-specific gift with clear conditions, and both Andrew and Lauren signed when it was established. It's very hard for her to overturn that now. What do we do next?" "For now, we'll file an official response, reaffirming the original terms. Funds can only be used when Bella turns 18. After hanging up, I called Andrew. He already knew Lauren had told him before filing. "Mom, I'm sorry. I tried to stop her, but she was determined. It's not your fault. It is, in part. If only I'd set boundaries from the start." His self-reflection surprised me in a good way. Andrew couldn't have said that a few months ago. Let the past go. What matters now is Bella's future. We set a meeting for the next day to go over our approach. Andrew suggested trying mediation before the case moved into the court system. I agreed if we could resolve it peacefully for Bella's sake, all the better. But the mediation failed. Lauren arrived with her attorney, stayed rigid, and rejected any proposal that didn't include an immediate partial disbursement from the fund. "Bella's education can't wait until she's 18, Lauren insisted. "I'm her mother. I know what's best for her, which includes enrolling her in the International Academy next term. The fund was created for Bella's college," I replied calmly. "Her current public school is excellent for elementary and secondary." "Typical of you," Lauren sneered. "Always needing to control, always thinking you know better than everyone." Andrew cut in before I could speak. "Lauren, please, we're not here to attack each other. We need a solution that's good for Bella." The result? No agreement. We left the conference room knowing the case would go to court. In the weeks that followed, tensions escalated. Lauren began complicating visitation, last-minute excuses about being busy or Bella not feeling well. When we did see each other, the child seemed confused and anxious, clearly affected by the conflict between the adults. During one puzzle session, Bella asked a question that clenched my heart. "Grandma, are you and Mom fighting because of me?" I set down the pieces and looked straight into her eyes. "No, sweetheart. Never think that. Grown-ups sometimes disagree, but it's never the child's fault." "But I heard Mom on the phone saying, 'You don't want me to go to a good school.'" I took a deep breath, searching for words a 5-year-old could understand. "Bella, I always want the best for you. Your school now is very good, and when you're older, there's money saved just for you so you can study anywhere you want." She frowned, thinking, "Then why is Mom mad?" Sometimes adults differ on timing and how to do good things, but that doesn't mean they love you any less. She nodded and went back to the puzzle while the conversation weighed on me the rest of the day. That night, I called Andrew and told him what happened. He sighed. "Lauren talks about the lawsuit in front of her. I've begged her not to protect Bella from adult matters, but she can't separate things. That can't continue. Bella is getting hurt." "I know. Tomorrow I'll ask my attorney about requesting a court order prohibiting discussion of the case in Bella's presence." In the following days, I did something I didn't expect. I called Helen, Lauren's mother. "Helen, we need to talk about Bella." "I was waiting for your call, Julie," she answered, weary. I know Lauren is going too far. Bella just asked if the adults are fighting because of her. She's confused and anxious. This has to stop. Helen sighed. I'll speak to her again. I keep trying to make Lauren see she's hurting her own child, but lately she's become tougher, more bitter. The separation hit her hard, not just emotionally, but in terms of status. She got used to a lifestyle she can't maintain now. Whatever the case, we can't use Bella as a hostage. I completely agree. Let me try again. After I hung up, I felt strangely relieved to have Helen as an ally. Even as Lauren's mother, she could see past family bias and put Bella's welfare first. 2 days later, Mark called. Julie, there's news. Lauren is proposing a settlement. What's the condition? She'll withdraw the lawsuit over the fund if you agree to help with tuition for Bella to attend a good private school in the city, not the international one she demanded at first. This money would be separate, not from the fund. The fund remains intact for college when Bella turns 18. I thought it over. On one hand, this could avoid a drawn-out case reducing harm for everyone, especially Bella. On the other hand, it felt like Lauren was just finding another way to reach my money. 3 months passed since the Seaside Cafe meeting. Life took on a different rhythm, calmer in some ways, busier in others. Andrew and I began reconnecting with small steps from both sides. He visited me regularly, sometimes bringing Bella, sometimes coming alone. We talked about the past with a frankness we'd never had. How he felt abandoned when his father died, how I buried myself in work to fill that void, and how Lauren skillfully exploited the cracks between us. The separation was formalized, with shared custody of Bella. On the days she stayed with Andrew, father and daughter often stopped by. We formed new habits: Saturday breakfasts on the balcony, beach walks, board games when the weather was bad. Lauren kept her distance, each handoff. She let Bella walk to my door by herself. Helen still acted as a bridge when truly necessary, thankfully less and less. One Sunday at noon, while the two of us were cooking and Bella was watching cartoons in the living room, Andrew said something that made me tense. Mom, Lauren is asking for a bigger share of the education fund you set up for Bella. I set down the knife. What do you mean? That fund is only for Bella when she turns 18. Neither of you can touch it before then. Andrew sighed. I know. I've explained it many times, but she says, as the mother, she has the right to decide how the money is used. She wants to withdraw part early to put Bella in an international private school next year. What do you think? Keep it as set. It exists for a reason. For now, the public system is good enough. The fund will guarantee college later. I went back to slicing vegetables, thinking as I worked. I wasn't surprised Lauren wanted to reach for that money. What surprised me was Andrew's resolve. Has she consulted an attorney? She says she's exploring options, but it'll be tough. The fund was drafted very tightly. Mark did an excellent job. I nodded, glad for the caution when we created it. And you? How do you feel about all this? Andrew looked out the ocean-facing window. Honestly, relieved. Separation is hard, especially because of Bella, but it was necessary. Now I see how much I'd lost my voice and myself. Is it hard on Bella? At first, yes. Lots of questions, lots of insecurity. But we're trying to create stability, even in 2 homes. And you being present regularly for Bella, that's a huge anchor. I smiled, both relieved and grateful. 2 weeks later, Mark Davis called, his tone serious. Julie, Lauren has filed a lawsuit requesting changes to the education fund terms. I felt my stomach tighten. On what basis? She says that as the mother and guardian, she has the right to decide how educational resources are used. She's requesting that at least 30% be dispersed immediately to pay private school tuition. Our odds? Pretty good. The fund is a purpose-specific gift with clear conditions, and both Andrew and Lauren signed when it was created. It's very hard for her to overturn now. Next step? For now, we'll file an official response, reaffirming the original terms. Funds can only be used when Bella turns 18. I called Andrew right away. He already knew Lauren had told him before filing. "Mom, I'm sorry. I tried to stop her, but she was determined. It's not your fault. It's partly on me. I should have set boundaries from the start." His acceptance of responsibility surprised me in a good way. Let the past go. What matters now is Bella's future. We set a meeting for the next day to go over the details. Andrew suggested trying mediation before the case moved into court. I agreed. But the mediation failed. Lauren came with her attorney, was unyielding, and rejected any proposal that didn't include an immediate partial disbursement from the fund. "Bella's education can't wait until she's 18, Lauren insisted. "I'm her mother. I know what's best for her, including enrolling her in the International Academy next term." "The fund was set up for college," I replied calmly. "Public schools right now are very good for elementary and secondary." "Typical of you," Lauren sneered. "Always wanting to control, always thinking you know better." Andrew cut in. "Lauren, please, we're here to find a solution that's good for Bella." There was no agreement. Tensions rose. Lauren began making visitations difficult, citing sudden busyness or Bella feeling sick. When we did meet, the child was confused and anxious, clearly affected by the adult conflict. During one puzzle session, Bella asked a question that clenched my heart. "Grandma, are you and Mom fighting because of me?" I looked into her eyes. "No, sweetheart. Never think that. Adults sometimes disagree, but it's never your fault. But I heard Mom on the phone saying you don't want me to go to a good school." I took a deep breath and chose words a 4-year-old could understand. "Bella, I always want the best for you. Your current school is very good. When you're older, there's money saved just for you so you can study anywhere you want." She frowned. "Then why is Mom mad?" "Sometimes adults differ on when and how to do good things, but the love for you doesn't change." She nodded and went back to her game. The conversation weighed on me all day. That night, I called Andrew and told him. He sighed. "Lauren talks about the lawsuit in front of her. I've begged her not to, but she can't keep it separate. This can't go on. Bella is being hurt." "I know. Tomorrow I'll talk to my attorney about asking the court for an order barring discussion of the case in Bella's presence." A few days later, I called Helen, Lauren's mother. "Helen, we need to talk about Bella." "I've been waiting for your call, Julie," she said wearily. "I know Lauren is going too far. Bella just asked if the adults are fighting because of her. She's so confused. I'll speak to her again. I keep trying to make Lauren see she's hurting her own child, but lately she's become tougher and more bitter. The separation has dragged her down in feelings and in status. She got used to a lifestyle she can't maintain now. Whatever the case, Bella can't be used as a hostage." "I completely agree. Let me try once more." 2 days later, Mark called. "Julie, there's news. Lauren proposes a settlement. She'll withdraw the lawsuit over the fund if you agree to help pay tuition for Bella to attend a good private school in the city, not an international school. This amount is separate, not from the fund. The fund stays reserved for college when Bella turns 18. Can I think about it until tomorrow and give you an answer?" Of course, no rush. After hanging up, I sat on the balcony, watched the ocean, and waited. I remembered how many times I'd given in to Andrew and Lauren's financial demands over the years, unintentionally creating a toxic pattern. If I agreed to this new proposal, would I be extending that cycle? But this was Bella's education, the innocent child caught between adult conflict. Should I refuse when I'm able to help? I decided to call Andrew before deciding. "What do you think of that proposal?" I asked, after laying out the terms. "Honestly, I think it's Lauren's manipulation. She knows you care about Bella and is using that as leverage. Bella's current public school is excellent. Dedicated teachers, solid facilities. I don't see a need to switch now." "You think the motive is money image?" "No doubt. Lauren's always obsessed with status. Putting our child in a prestigious private school is about image more than real quality." Andrew's words made sense, but I didn't want to decide based on old resentment. "I'll visit Bella's school tomorrow. I want to see the environment and meet the teachers before deciding." "Great idea, Mom. I'll tell the school. They're very open with families." The next morning, I dressed neatly and drove to the public school where Bella studies. The campus was simple, but clean, with a spacious, colorful playground. The academic coordinator, a middle-aged woman with a kind smile, welcomed me in her office. "Lovely to meet you, Julie. Bella often talks about her grandma who lives by the sea." We talked for nearly an hour about the school's philosophy, curriculum, and extracurriculars. She took me on a tour: well-equipped classrooms, a cozy library, a modest but functional science lab, and an art room full of children's work. Passing Bella's class, I saw her through the window sitting in a reading circle with classmates, animated and confident. She was happy, connected, perfectly adapted. I drove home with a clear mind. I called Mark and reported my decision. I'm declining Lauren's proposal. Bella's current school is excellent. I see no educational reason to switch now. If it goes to court, I'm ready. Mark sounded relieved. That's the right choice. Giving in now would set a precedent for future demands. In the following days, as expected, Lauren ramped up pressure, yelling calls to Andrew, vague posts online, even trying to tighten my visitation schedule. But this time, I didn't yield. I stood firm, believing I was doing what was best for everyone, especially Bella. A month later, the case went to court. Sitting in the courtroom, I looked at Lauren on the other side, well-dressed, carefully made up, projecting the image of a devoted mother. Andrew sat beside me, silent but steadying. The middle-aged judge listened to both sides. Lauren's attorney emphasized the role of mother and primary guardian, the right to decide education. Mark presented the fund's clear terms, both parents' signatures at its creation, and the quality of the very public school Bella attends. After deliberation, the judge ruled, keep the education fund as originally set usable only when Bella turns 18. Keep the current school choice, and any future changes must be jointly decided by both parents. Leaving the court, I felt both relieved and sad. Relieved to have protected Bella's educational future, sad that our family needed a legal ruling for something that should have been resolved at home. Andrew squeezed my hand. Thank you for standing firm, Mom. I hope now we can move forward, focus on what matters most, Bella. That's always been your goal, hasn't it? Even when you sold the house and set up the fund, you were thinking long-term, what was best for all of us. His words touched me. For the first time in a long while, I felt my son truly saw me not as a wallet or someone to manipulate, but as a mother who, despite hard decisions, always acted out of love. The next week, on a rainy afternoon, Helen knocked unexpectedly, umbrella dripping, face heavy. "May I come in, Julie?" "We need to talk." I invited her into the living room and poured hot tea. We sat in silence for a few minutes, just the rain tapping the glass. "Lauren is getting ready to move," she said. "She found a job in another city, nearly 500 miles from here, and wants to take Bella." The news landed like a bomb. "Can she do that after the joint custody ruling?" "Legally, it's difficult. She'd need Andrew's consent or a new court decision. But I came because I think you should know. Lauren is determined one way or another." "You think she'd do something reckless?" Helen looked down. "I can't say for sure, but I know my daughter, especially when she's cornered." I didn't need her to finish. The implication was clear. Lauren might take Bella without permission. "Have you told Andrew yet?" "I'm seeing him after this." "I thought you should know too, so everyone stays alert." I thanked Helen for her honesty and for putting Bella's best interests above blood ties. After she left, I called Mark right away for guidance. The next days were a tense preparation. Andrew filed for a temporary restraining order, barring Lauren from taking Bella out of the city without both parents' written consent. The school was notified to release Bella only to her parents or pre-authorized individuals. We rotated schedules so Bella wouldn't be alone with Lauren for long stretches. Amid the tension, we still tried to keep Bella's routine normal. Sunday visits with Grandma, building sandcastles, collecting shells. But a cloud hung over us, the fear that at any moment the child could be torn from us by her mother's bitterness. 2 months passed since Lauren's failed attempt. The legal measures worked. The court approved the order preventing removal from the city without mutual consent. Realizing she couldn't carry out the plan, Lauren declined the out-of-town job. The air remained tense. Lauren grew more bitter and difficult in every everyday decision about Bella. Which uniform, which extracurriculars, even how to cut her hair. Everything became an argument. Andrew, on the other hand, grew. Steadier by the day, no longer intimidated by Lauren's emotional blow-ups, no longer manipulable. He set clear boundaries and kept them, always putting Bella's well-being first. As for me, I found a new balance. The beachfront apartment became a real home, not just a temporary refuge. I tended to every corner, planted flowers on the balcony, and hung photos not only of the past but of new memories too. Bella had a space of her own, a small room with a bed, toys, and books for the weekends she spent with Grandma. On a quiet morning, while I was making coffee in the kitchen, I got an urgent call from Helen. "Julie, something's happened. Lauren has disappeared with Bella." My heart jumped. "What do you mean, disappeared?" "This morning she was supposed to take Bella to school but never showed up. Her phone is off. She's not at home, and not at work either. I've told Andrew he's heading to the police station to file a report." My hands shook as I hung up. I grabbed my bag and car keys and drove straight to the station, where I knew Andrew would be. On the way, 1,000 worst-case scenarios flashed through my mind. When I arrived, Andrew was giving a statement to the desk officer, his face pale, tense, the circles under his eyes stark. "We've activated an Amber Alert," the officer said. "Neighboring states, airports, bus stations, and train stations have all been notified. The court order barring removal of the child from the city without both parents' signatures has also been entered into the system." "What do we do now?" Andrew asked, his voice tight. "Go home and wait to be contacted. Keep your phone with you at all times. Meanwhile, try to think of where she might have taken the child, relatives, friends. Past vacation spots any lead could be valuable." Leaving the station, we carried the kind of helplessness only those who've been there can understand. Andrew decided to come to my apartment instead of going back to his place. He didn't want to be alone, and I wanted him nearby during this suffocating stretch of time. We sat in my living room, trying to list places Lauren might have taken Bella. Lauren's family was just Helen and an elderly uncle who lived in the countryside. Close friends were few, and most were mutual friends with Andrew, unlikely to help with something as serious as a suspected child abduction. "Wait!" Andrew sprang up. "Her college boyfriend, what was his name?" "Richard. Richard Miller. They stayed in touch even after the wedding. He moved to the Florida Keys a few years ago. You think she'll try to take Bella across the border?" "I'm not sure, but it's possible." I told Andrew to call the police with the lead right away. While Andrew was on the phone, I got a text from Helen. "I found something in Lauren's room. You two come immediately." We drove straight to Helen's apartment, where Lauren and Bella had been staying since. The separation. Helen met us at the door, exhausted. She handed Andrew an envelope. Inside were bus tickets headed toward the Mexican border, in Lauren's and Bella's names, along with a handwritten letter to Helen. "Mom, by the time you read this, we'll be far away. I can't stand watching my daughter be controlled by Julie and Andrew. I can't let her grow up believing money and power matter more than love and family. I'm taking her somewhere we can start over, without interference. Please don't try to find us. This isn't goodbye, just a temporary parting. When things calm down, I'll reach out. Lauren." Andrew read the letter aloud, fury plain on his face. Controlled, money and power more important than love? How can she twist everything like this? Helen bowed her head, stricken. "I'm sorry. I should have noticed earlier, should have done something to stop it." "It's not your fault, Helen," I said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Lauren is an adult. She made her choice." Andrew called the investigator again. He reported the bus tickets, the likely route toward the border, and the name of the acquaintance who might shelter them. The next hours were taut as a wire, phones placed within reach, hearts lurching at every notification, yet no news. Helen made coffee, then tea, then put together a light meal no one could swallow a bite. Night fell. The three of us still sat in the living room, exhausted but unable to sleep. Near midnight, Andrew's phone rang. It was the police station. "Mr. Andrew, we have news about your daughter. She's been found at a motel near the Mexican border with her mother. Both are physically safe. Local police are holding them until the legal matters are sorted." Andrew collapsed into a chair, tears of relief spilling over. "Thank God. When can I see her? How do I bring her home?" "A family court officer will contact you tomorrow morning to guide you through the next every teen steps. For now, your daughter is safe, and that's what matters." After he hung up, Andrew hugged me, then Helen, the odd trio of a son, his mother, and his ex-mother-in-law, bound by love for a little girl who had suddenly become the eye of a family storm. "What happens now?" Helen asked, her voice breaking. "Lauren will likely face legal consequences for attempting to take Bella out of the country without permission," Andrew answered. "What are we waiting for?" "I don't know. Everything has changed now." The following days were a blur of legal procedures. Andrew traveled to the border area to pick up Bella, accompanied by a family court officer. Lauren was temporarily detained for questioning, then released on the condition that she could not have unsupervised contact with Bella until the case was resolved. 3 days later, I saw my granddaughter again. She looked confused, shaken, but physically fine. As soon as she saw me, Bella hugged me hard, burying her face in my neck like when she was little. "Grandma," Mom said, "we were going to live in another country, just the two of us, but I didn't want to go without saying goodbye to you and Dad." "I know, sweetheart. Sometimes adults make wrong decisions even when they think they're doing right. What matters is that you're safe now and that we all love you very much." In the weeks that followed, the situation settled. Lauren lost joint custody and was limited to supervised visitation until she completed a family therapy program. Andrew became Bella's primary guardian, responsible for ensuring she still saw her mother in a safe environment. Helen surprisingly became a valuable ally. Though heartbroken for her daughter, she put Bella's interests first, volunteering to supervise some visits to create a neutral, warm space for mother and child. 6 months after the crisis, the picture looked nothing like what I'd once imagined. Bella lived mainly with Andrew in a larger apartment near my home. I picked her up from school 3 days a week, spent afternoons with her until Andrew finished work. On weekends, we often gathered for family activities. Lauren, after completing half the therapy program, began to show signs of change. Supervised visits grew less tense, and she seemed to accept the new reality, focusing more on rebuilding her relationship with her daughter than fighting the circumstances. One Sunday afternoon, Andrew and I sat on the balcony watching Bella play in the sand on the beach in front of my place. Andrew asked me something that stopped me short. "Mom, do you regret selling the house?" I thought for a moment, then shook my head. No. It was a drastic decision, and it hurt all of us at the time. But look, see where we are now. I gestured ahead, Bella eagerly building a sandcastle, the calm sea behind her. My son and me sitting side by side, something we hadn't done in years. If I hadn't done it, we'd probably still be stuck in the same toxic loop. You unhappy in a marriage that couldn't be saved but afraid to leave. Me exploited financially and ignored emotionally. And Bella growing up amid warped patterns. Andrew nodded slowly. I think you're right. It was a painful wake-up call, but a necessary one for all of us, including Lauren. I added, she's had to face her own issues, something that probably never would have happened if we had kept the old dynamic. Andrew looked at me. What I respect most is that no matter what, you never used Bella as a weapon, never tried to cut her off from her mother, never spoke ill of Lauren in front of her. You always prioritized their mother-daughter bond, even when Lauren tried to take Bella away. Bella deserves to have both a mother and a grandmother in her life. This isn't a win-lose game when a child's well-being is on the line. Bella ran over, hair salty wet, face glowing. Grandma, Dad, come see my castle. I made a special spot for each of us, even for Mom when she can come to the beach with us. We stood and followed her to the water's edge. A detailed sandcastle rose there, decorated with colorful shells and tiny flags made of twigs and palm leaves. Bella pointed to each section, explaining who lived where in her imagination. Looking at that scene, my granddaughter proud of her creation, my son beside me, the blue sea stretching to the horizon, I understood that, however painful the journey, we'd arrived exactly where we needed to be. Not a perfect family, not an ideal situation. There were still scars, sad memories, and many challenges ahead. But there was also love, respect, healthy boundaries, and the understanding that real relationships aren't built on exploitation, but on reciprocity and genuine care. The house I once sold was only a physical structure, walls and a roof. I realized home isn't a place, but the people we choose to walk with, the tendevetter all senpi. Relationships built on respect. The peace that comes when we honor ourselves as much as we honor others. As the sunset painted the sky and sea orange, Bella took my hand on one side and Andrew's on the other. Today is the best day ever, she declared with the wholehearted certainty only a child has. And in that moment, I couldn't agree more. After the storm, we found not only calm, but clarity. After the hurt, we rediscovered not only joy, but wisdom. And after all those years of always putting others first, I finally learned the most important lesson. To truly love someone, you have to respect yourself first. If you liked this story, please subscribe and tell me in the comments which detail left you most stunned. Oh, and become a member to see the exclusive videos I don't post publicly. I'll see you there. As we close Julie's story, I'm reminded that home isn't bricks or shingles. It's the people we choose to keep and the boundaries we set so love can be safe. Julie didn't win or lose against anyone. She chose self-respect so she could love her son, her granddaughter, and herself the right way. Andrew learned to take responsibility and grow up. Bella found a peaceful embrace to grow within. And Lauren, even by a winding road, had to face her own cracks. Family ties last only when paired with respect and boundaries. Forgiveness with a backbone and love with principles, that's what this story brought back to me today. What about you? In your family, what boundaries keep love from getting hurt? If you were in Julie's place, what would you do to protect a child while staying compassionate with the adults? Share your perspective in the comments. Maybe your story will be a light for someone who feels lost. If this journey spoke to you and you want to keep listening, reflecting, and learning together through the next stories, I'd love for you to stay with the channel so each week we can have another warm, gentle, and thoughtful conversation. See you in the next story.